Random J Productions presents the Palm Summer League. Today, we are here at the World Center of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway, for our first ever WeatherTech Duels. Taking a look at the duel format for this year, each duel race will consist of 9 laps, with duel number 1 consisting of the drivers going into this race in opposition in points, such as 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, etc. While duel number 2 will consist of the drivers at the even position in points going into this race, such as 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, etc. And even though these races are rather short, yes, they do award bonus points, with the top 2 finishers of each duel receiving bonus points, with first place getting 3 points, second place getting 2 points, and third place getting 1 point. In addition as well, the driver who leads the most laps in each duel will also receive a bonus points, with the maximum points being earned in a duel race being 4 points. And of course, winners of each duel will start on the front row for the Firecracker 400, with the runner-ups of each duel starting on the second row, and so on. But anyways, with that all out of the way, let's take a look at our starting lineup for WeatherTech Duel number 1. So on the front row, we got the current points leader here in the Palm Summer League, the 88 car of Hoodlum, and next from the 99 of Joe T. Row 2, Brendan Beal in the 37, and Owen Miles in the 25. Row 3, Kyle Salmon in the 71, fresh off his California win, and next from Jordan Caldwell, of course, finished second during the Coca-Cola Summer Kickoff. Row 4, Mopar in the 41, and Nathan Stapleton, who of course started second during the summer kickoff. Row 5, the pole sitter from the summer kickoff, Bradley Reim, and next from Nick Sand, the 40. Row 6, Ross McTrain in the 91, and next from fellow Dodge, the 9 of Lipsy. Row 7, we got 2 drivers making their first ever start here in Firecracker Week, Patrick Mill in the 33, and next from the 49 of Dylan Matthews. In row number 8, we got 2 Random J Series veterans, Brendan Carruthers in the 19, and the 17 of Dan Mattiello. And finally, in row number 9, currently last in the point standings going into this race, is the 24 and the HWL champion of Keyshawn Richardson. Taking a look at the track info here for today's duel races. So we're going to go 9 laps in both events as previously mentioned on this 2.5 mile long super speedway with 31 degrees of banking in the corners. And as for the weather here today in Daytona Beach, it's a very, very hot and windy 92 degrees Fahrenheit with 10 miles per hour towards the north. And as for other notes, as previously mentioned, the top 3 finishers in each duel get 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point depending on where they finish. And leading the most laps also earns an additional bonus point. And with that finally out of the way, it is now time for the starting command here in WeatherTech Duel number 1.
All right, guys, let's do this. Drivers, start your engines.
Now, before this race gets started, I just want to say a couple of things real quick. First off, once again, a huge thank you to everyone who requested a patriotic paint scheme. For the 4th year in a row, these paint schemes turned out beautiful and are very, very patriotic here on this 4th of July weekend. And also as well, thank you to everyone who has supported the Palm Summer Week so far this summer, as well as Firecracker Week so far this week. But with that all out of the way, the pace truck heads down pit road as we're just about ready for our first official Firecracker Week race as duel number 1 of the WeatherTech Duels are underway here at Daytona. And already a great launch for Hoodlum on the inside coming off the tri-oval. But of course, with these super speedways, you do not want a lot of distance over the rest of the pack, as these drivers behind could easily build a run and catch up to you quickly. And speaking of which, this pack is already going 3 wide into turns 1 and 2, as both Salmon and Caldwell lose ground to the 41 of Mopar. Coming down to Daytona Super Stress, that gap Hoodlum got during the start of this race is all but diminished as Beal gets a great run on the inside into turn number 3 as he has help from the fellow Dodge and Mopar behind. Coming to complete lap number 1 here in WeatherTech Duel number 1 is going to be current PSL points leader Hoodlum back to the line first. And just to reiterate once again that this is a points race. If you lead the most laps or finish this at the top 3, you will get bonus points that will be rewarded to you before the Firecracker 400, which of course could be very beneficial for our championship next month, as Hoodlum gets forced up to the outside as here's Beal side by side of Hoodlum in the turn number 2 for the lead. And as we saw with the summer kickoff about a month or so ago, both NS Racing and Relfan Motorsports seem to work fantastic together at these super speedways. And speaking of which, here's the boss man of Relfan, Reim, with a great run into turn number 3. And as Bill remains side by side of Hoodlum through turns 3 and 4, he comes down to the inside in front of his car owner, with the fellow Dodge of Ross McTrain behind the 6 car as well. Beal and Hoodlum still side by side, coming off turn number 4 to complete lap number 2 here in duel number 1. It's going to be Beal who barely beats Hoodlum back to the line. Behind this top 2, this pack is already in a 3x3 formation, as things are already starting to get dicey here in duel number 1. Off for turn number 2, Hoodlum moves to the outside in front of Joe T, while the Relfan teammates of Bill and Bradley move to the middle, as this potentially opens the door for the inside whip by Ross McTrain going into turn number 3, while the Relfan drivers come back down to the inside to block the 91. And subsequently at the same time, Hoodlum moves back down to the middle, as look at Mopar behind him, making it 3 wide on Joe T and McTrain. Off of 4, Beal moves to the outside in front of Hoodlum, leaving Bradley as now the lead car on the inside before Beal tried to block the 6 car, but instead as we complete lap number 3, these 2 teammates are going to be side by side for the lead. And as we've seen basically every time we've come to Daytona, the inside just gets fantastic runs going into these corners, as we no exception here today, as Bradley will clear his teammate for the lead off turn number 2. Now, of course, Bradley has been in the Random J Series since the very beginning, but so far here in the PSL, he hasn't really been performing up to his standards. As going into this race, Bradley was in a rather pedestrian 17th place in points, which is rather disappointing for the multi-time GSS winner. But if he does indeed do well here today, he could earn some potentially very valuable bonus points that could go a long way here in this championship fight. But as we come to lap number 5, Reim's going to rejoin his teammate on the outside, allowing McTrain to be side by side with the 6 car into turn number 1. The pack is once again 3 wide, of Mopar still in the middle, and Nixon getting a huge run of help from Lipsy as Caldwell tries to join the inside lane. Meanwhile, off for turn number 2, McTrain's going to take the lead away from Reim, as McTrain now goes to the outside of the block. Reim, as there's Patrick Miller side by side of the 91. Some of these drivers in this inside lane include the 19 of Carruthers, the 24 of Richardson, the 17 of Dan Mattiello, Dylan Matthews in the 49, 97 to Stapleton, and now the 82 of Caldwell as previously mentioned. And even though McTrain is still side by side of Miller coming off turn number 4 and coming to lap number 6, it's just no match once again for this inside lane, as Miller will come to lead this time by with only 4 laps to go here in duel number 1. Into turn number 1, this pack is mostly back to 2 wide as the middle line continues to fall back, as Mopar and Nixon, the only 2 drivers even in that lane, until Miles and Salmon come to join them. Down the back straightaway, McTrain trying everything he can to keep up with Miller for the lead, as Bradley and Bill are right behind the 91 going into turn number 3. As the outside actually got a really good run that time by, but once again, the inside lane is going to prevail, as Carruthers is all over the back bumper of Miller. And you can see the middle line still led by Mopar. Nixon is starting back up, coming to lap number 7, with only 3 laps to go. But as soon as I say that, going into turn number 1, the middle line's back down to just Mopar and Nixon, as most of this top 7 is once again 2x2. And much like before into turn number 2, Salmon and Miles are back to the middle, trying to start something here, as we're now down to the final 2.5 laps here in duel number 1. Here comes McTrain with a strong run on the outside once again, but can he keep this up going into turn number 3? And despite once again having help from the Relfan drivers of Reim and Beal, McTrain and Miller remain side by side for the lead. And you saw there briefly the contrast between Carruthers and Bradley, as Carruthers was all over the back bumper of Miller, much like last time, where Bradley had some distance over the 91. But coming back to the stripe with only 2 laps to go, it's going to be Miller who leads another lap. And you can see now this field is now down to just 2 lines, inside and outside, making that effort last time by to get the middle line going, nothing but an afterthought. Now, even though this 2-wide racing is pretty uncommon from our races here in Daytona in years past, there's a good reason why everyone in this pack is going 2 wide as opposed to 3 wide, as we're now down to only a lap and a half before we find out who wins this race and subsequently who sits on the pole for the summer's biggest race on Tuesday night. But through turns 3 and 4 for the second to last time, this is still anybody's race, and it's subsequently anybody's pole to win, as just about anything could happen in these final 2.5 miles here in Duel number 1, as this time by, the white flag's in the air here at Daytona. There you see McTrain trying to get some sort of side drive off the 33 before Miller moves in the middle himself, open the door for the inside of Brittany Carruthers and Keyshawn Richardson to take advantage to go 3 wide into turn number 1. Meanwhile, Bradley and Bill go way up high on the outside into turn number 2 to try to help out the 91 as Miller's all by himself in the middle, coming off turn number 2 for the final time. Down the back, Carruthers moves to the middle in front of Miller before moving to the outside in front of his teammate of McTrain. As now that leaves Keyshawn Richardson, the lead driver on the inside, going into turn number 3. Here comes the run for the 24. Carruthers tried the block, but there's not enough room to do so as he remains in the middle with Miller behind, with Richardson having help from Mattiello into turn number 4 for the final time. And here we go, coming off turn number 4 and coming to the front stretch. It's going to be a side-by-side finish to the line here in Duel number 1. Carruthers wins by inches. Oh my goodness, what a finish here at Daytona as Brendan Carruthers just barely edges out Keyshawn Richardson for the win here in WeatherTech Duel number 1, with the margin of victory being just 4 1/1000ths of a second. The 3rd closest finish here in channel history. Unbelievable. Now, of course, with Carruthers winning here today, he will not only start first on Tuesday night for the Firecracker 400, but also will get 3 bonus points for winning. Meanwhile, Keyshawn Richardson is going to get 2 bonus points, while Patrick Miller also gets 2 bonus points, 1 for finishing 3rd, and 1 for leading the most laps here in Duel number 1. Let's take a look at the instant replay to see how close and how insane this finish was for Duel number 1. So coming to the white flag, McTrain moves to the middle a little bit to get some sort of side drive off Patrick Miller before moving back to the outside immediately, before Miller himself moves to the middle, opening the door for Brendan Carruthers and Keyshawn Richardson going into turn number 1. That was a fatal mistake from Miller. He should have stayed in the inside if at all possible. And with Carruthers and Richardson having the inside lane, they got a good run into turn number 2 and down the back straightaway before Carruthers moves to the middle in front of Miller and then to the outside in front of his teammate of McTrain, leaving it open for Keyshawn Richardson on the inside going into turn number 3, with Mattiello later joining him on the inside. And as Carruthers tried the block here, there's not enough room to do so. Carruthers was forced to the middle as him and Richardson were side by side for the lead at this point. And then off of 4, despite Richardson getting a great run on the outside, Carruthers still maintains his ground on the outside. And as Richardson gets a great run in the middle coming into the tri-oval, Carruthers just barely beat him back to the line. And just to see how close this finish was in slow motion, 4 1/1000ths of a second. The 3rd closest finish here in channel history. Wow. Unbelievable. Anyways, let's take a look at the full finishing results here in WeatherTech Duel number 1. So here we go. Brendan Carruthers wins WeatherTech Duel number 1 and subsequently the 2023 Firecracker 400 pole by 4 1/1000ths of a second over Keyshawn Richardson. Again, the 3rd closest finish in channel history. Still, regardless, a good effort for Keyshawn Richardson and this very disastrous start to the PSL season thus far, as he will start 3rd in the summer's biggest race on Tuesday night. Meanwhile, Patrick Miller will start in 5th as he comes home 3rd here in Duel number 1 after winning the most laps and looking fast for virtually the entire race. And to run off the rest of the top 5, it's going to be Dan Mattiello and Dylan Matthews, as the both of them will have top 10 starting positions on Tuesday night. Meanwhile, as for the rest of the drivers in this top 10 here in Duel number 1, they will all start within the top 20, including names like Ross McTrain, Bradley Reim, Nathan Stapleton, current points leader of Hoodlum, and Brendan Beal in the 37. And as for the drivers 11th through 17th here in Duel number 1, they all have their work cut out for them on Tuesday night, as Lipstein, Molpar, Nick Sant, Jordan Caldwell, Kyle Salmon, Owen Miles will all start below the top 20, while Joe T will start dead last in the 99. Anyways, that just about wraps up Duel number 1 here at Daytona, but don't go anywhere, as coming up next will be WeatherTech Duel number 2, right after this. Welcome back to the Daytona International Speedway here in the Palm Summer League, as you just wrapped up a very exciting WeatherTech Duel number 1 just moments ago. But now, we're just about ready for Duel number 2, as it's now time to take a look at this Duel starting lineup. So on the front row here in Duel number 2 are the two Hernandez Racing teammates of Daniel Rice Jr. in the 43 and John Hernandez in the 46, seeking his second straight Firecracker front row start. Row 2, summer kickoff winner Jordan Forbes, and next on the other Jordan, a Jordan Stout. Row 3, Alex Bowen in the 1, and Jason Albert in the 80. Row 4, Caleb Rose and Ryan Wilson. Row 5, Chris Murray and Roberto Crown Jr. Row 6, Calvin Baker and Trey Smith in the 4. Row 7, Daniel Voiles in the 76 and Jose Angel in the 79. And finally, in row number 8 is the 53 of Random J and the 44 of Matthew Burnett. And now it's time for another starting command, this time for Duel number 2.
Driver, start your engine!
And as these drivers continue turns 3 and 4, ready to start this race, it's going to be interesting to see how this duel race will compare to duel number 1, because the poll has already been decided. Creditors will start first on Tuesday night. But this is going to be for second place, the outside poll. So we're going to see if these drivers will be conservative in this duel, be more aggressive in this duel race, or just race about the same. And as the pace truck heads down pit road once again, we're going to see which answer will it be as Daniel Rice and Hernandez lead the filter green here in duel number 2. And much like duel number 1, the inside gets a great launch on the start, with Rice going to the outside in front of his teammate as they go into turn number 1. And you saw that Rice tried to go back to the inside, but there's not enough room in between him and Forbes, as 61 and 43 will be side by side into turn number 2. Down the back straight, Rice is still on the outside in front of Hernandez, as here's Mullen with a strong run coming up on the 61 going into turn number 3 as the 61 and 1 go to the middle, as there's Caleb Rose with up from Chris Murray on the inside before Forrest comes to block. And that did not take long to go 3 wide to return 3 and 4 with Mullen in the middle with Hernandez and Rose on the inside and outside respectively. And this pack here in the lap number 1 of duel number 2 is just as intense as the pack during the last lap of duel number 1 as Forrest leads this time by. Into turn number 1, Forrest goes back to the middle in front of Mullen before moving back down to the inside in front of Rose, as he was able to block the strong run the inside typically gets going into these corners. Off for turn number 2, you see Random J and Matthew Burnett, the last two starters in this duel, are keeping their distance away from this pack, because they know going 3 wide on lap number 2 in a qualifying race, it's just way too aggressive and way too risky, and just instead want to save their stuff for the end, for not only a better chance to protect their car, but also a better starting position on Tuesday night. Off for turn number 4, coming to complete lap number 2, it's going to be once again Jordan Forbes who leads the lane as he moves back down to the inside to block Rose. And much like we saw last time by, Forbes will go to the outside to block Rice before moving back down to the inside to block Rose into turn number 1. As this time around, as Forrest moves back to the middle, Rose will be side by side with the 61 coming off turn number 2. Chris Murray, 87 car, also in this mix alongside the 21 Roberto Crown and the former driver of the 21, Calvin Baker. Down the back straight, both Rose and Murray move to the middle in front of Albert as the 59 and 61 remain side by side into turn number 3 as this pack seems to be calming down, at least just for a little bit. Off for turn number 4, Rose and Forbes are still side by side, but this time by, it's going to be Rose who has the advantage over Forbes. But that's not stopping Forbes to remain side by side with Rose into turn number 1 once again, as both these Dodgers will have help from Chevys behind them, with Rose having help from Chris Murray as they're on board with him. Of course, Murray and basically everybody at Hernandez Racing under immense pressure to win the Firecracker 400, as it's the only crown jewel that team has yet to win. And speaking of Hernandez Racing, you can see kind of the dynamic of how these duels can be interesting. Hoodwin was the only driver in duel number 1 for that team, while everybody else in that team is here in duel number 2. Off for turn number 4 once again. Both Rose and Murray move to the middle before moving back down to the inside immediately, coming to lap number 5. As much like our last duel, the drivers turn it back are 3x3. Rose and Murray continue to shift between the middle and inside through turns 1 and 2, as those drivers are right now currently back on the inside right in front of Baker. But down the back straightaway, it's going to be Rose who moves to the outside in front of Forbes, leaving Murray now the lead driver on the inside, as these former drafting partners will now be side by side for the lead into turn number 3. Coming to complete lap number 5, these two remain side by side, with Murray briefly going to the middle for moving back down to the inside, as the field is once again 3x3 behind. Here comes the Toyotas of Daniel Voiles and Random J now inside this mix on the inside, as Murray moves to the middle into turn number 1, as he's going to be side by side with the 76. These Toyotas are definitely playing the long game here in duel number 2, as we haven't really talked about either Voiles or Random throughout this entire race so far, but did they make the move up to the front too early, as anything could happen with less than 3.5 laps to go. On board of Random do turns 3 and 4, as he's right behind the fellow Toyota of Voiles to help him get around to 87. Off for turn number 4, much like our last duel, the middle lane drivers of Crown, Albert, and Wilson are starting to fall back as you come to 3 laps to go, this time by. That time by there, that was a strong run from Murray on the outside off the tri-oval, but the inside once again just gets great runs into these corners, and there's no exception here, as Voiles still has the advantage over Murray. Now, if you remember during duel number 1, this was around the time drivers in that race started going 2x2 to help save their stuff for the end of the race. But in this race, it's virtually the complete opposite, as you still see drivers going 3 and almost 4 wide, and Stout and Hernandez go way down on the inside lane, almost on the yellow line. But that bold move from both Stout and Hernandez seems to work, as look at all the ground they're making up on the inside lane into turn number 4. Meanwhile, back towards the front, Voiles and Murray remain side by side for the lead, coming to 2 laps to go here in duel number 2. Voiles with another strong run off the tri-oval and going into turn number 1, but Murray still remains side by side with the 76. The middle line now led by Jose Angel, still trying to make something work here, but here comes Stout on the inside, making it 3 wide of Angel in the middle, and Rose on the outside. Down the back, Voiles moves to the outside, making Random now the lead driver on the inside as he gets a strong run with off of Matt from Burnett into turn number 3 for the second to last time. Into turns 3 and 4, Burnett's now going to move to the middle in front of Angel, making Stout now the next driver on the inside to pick up his fellow teammates. Random's going to be side by side off of forward. Voiles for the lead this time by, coming to the white flag here in duel number 2 as Random moves back to the inside in front of his teammates. Jordan Stout's car has come to life during the late portion of this race, and if Random shifting back and forth between the middle and inside, it will be enough to keep the 11 car at bay. On board of Jordan Stout coming off turn number 2 and down the back straight for the final time here in duel number 2 as Random moves to the middle as he's still side by side with Voiles, leaving door potentially open for Stout going into turn number 3, but Random quickly comes down to the inside the block. The pack is 3 wide behind the leaders through turns 3 and 4 for the final time as Random gets a strong run off of 4. Off of 4 for the final time, Voiles and Random remain side by side, but until the checkered flag is not going to be enough for Voiles, Random J wins duel number 2. Congratulations to Random J, as he will start second on Tuesday night for the Firecracker 400, while Daniel Royals will start in fourth and Jonas Stout will start in sixth. So great coordination there by the Toyotas to make up the entirety of the top three in this duel race, and subsequently have the first three cars on the outside lane all be Camrys. Anyways, let's take a look at the full results for duel number 2, as well as the points earned in both duels and the starting lineup for the Firecracker 400. So here we go, Random J wins duel number 2 and the outside pole for the 2023 Firecracker 400, as he will start right next to Britton Carruthers in the 19. So definitely a great effort there for the 53, who is in desperate need of good points here in the Palm Summer League. Meanwhile, Daniel Voiles will settle with second in the 76, while Jordan Stout will round off the rest of the Toyota trifecta inside this top 3 here in duel number 2, and subsequently round off the rest of the top 6. Meanwhile, Matt Burnett is a solid 4th place here in duel number 2, while the 87 car Chris Murray rounds off the top 5, and subsequently the rest of the top 10 for the starting lineup on Tuesday night, as those two drivers will start in 8th and 10th respectively. And as for the rest of those drivers inside the top 10 and making up the rest of the top 20 when it comes to the starting lineup, Johnny Hernandez will start 12th in the 46, Jose Angel in his first Firecracker 400 attempt will start 14th, Kellen Baker will start 16th, Ryan Wilson will start 18th, while Trey Smith, who was the fastest driver during Wednesday practice, will be the last car rounding off the rest of the top 20 for the starting lineup. And as for everybody else here in duel number 2, Caleb Rose will start in 22nd to 59, Alex Bowen will start 24th, Jason Albert will start in 26th, while Jordan Forbes, the summer kickoff winner, will start in 28th. And as for the last 2 spots in the race, Daniel Rice Jr. will be by far the lowest qualifying Hernandez Racing driver, as he will start in the 30th position, where Roberto Crown in the 21 will be the last car on the outside lane, starting 32nd in the last driver in row number 16. Now here are the first 3 rows for the 2023 Firecracker 400. Of course, the dual winners of Britton Carruthers and Random J will make up row number 1. Keith Richardson, who of course lost the pole by 4/1000 of a second, will start next to the fellow Toyota Daniel Voiles in row number 2. And finally for now in row number 3 will be Patrick Miller in the 33 and Jordan Stout in the 11 car. So 4 out of the 6 drivers on this list are all Toyotas, which goes to show you how fast these Camrys are here in Firecracker Week. And as for the most points earned here at the duels, Random J earns 4 points, the most out of any driver here today in the duels, while Britton Carruthers and Daniel Voiles both earned 3 points. Meanwhile, both Keyshawn Richardson and Patrick Miller both earned 2 points. And finally, Caleb Rose, Jordan Stout, and Jordan Forbes all earned a single point after the duels here today. And now for the point standings after both duel races, the drivers in blue gained a spot in points, while the drivers in red obviously lost spots. So in this case here, Jordan Forbes is back inside the top 5 in points in 5th, as Brendan Beal is going to drop down to 6th, while behind those two, Jordan Stout is now back up to 7th in points, while Owen Miles in the 25 is down to 8th in points. So next up on Firecracker Week will be the 2023 Coke Zero Showdown, with the biggest showdown field to date of 37 drivers, and that will be after the Chicago Street Race on Sunday night. While on Tuesday night will be the main event, the summer's biggest race, the Firecracker 400, which will be on 4th of July itself at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So that for 2 races you don't want to miss that will all be on this channel. But as always, y'all, thank you guys for watching this race. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.